Madam Chair and members of the Commission, we are now live. Welcome. My name is Karen Burdett. I am the Vice Chair of the HPC, and tonight I'll be the Acting Chair. This is the September 7th, 2022 Historic Preservation Meeting. Just to satisfy our legal requirements, I need to enter the following statement into the record. The commissioners and staff of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission are appointed by the county executive with the confirmation of the county council and are qualified to serve according to the Chapter 24A, Section 24A-4B of the Montgomery County Code. Resumes of the commissioners are on file at the Historic Preservation Office and are hereby made a part of the record by reference of all public hearings heard tonight. As is our custom, I would like our commissioners and staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Jeffrey Haynes.
This is Commissioner Dolman.
Julie Pelletier.
And remotely,
Laura Nasser.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff.
Michael Kine, Historic Preservation Staff.
And Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you very much. I just want to remind you that if you are speaking tonight and you haven't already, please fill out a form right there on the table and hand it back to staff, please. Going to open the public record with the historic area work permits. Have all the historic area work permits been duly advertised?
Yes, they were advertised in the August 24th edition of the Washington Times.
Okay, we are going to start tonight with the expedited historic area work permits. Those are the ones we feel can be approved expeditiously. If anyone is there who wishes to speak in opposition to the following cases, please let us know. We are talking historic area work permits 1B, at 2 East Lenox Street, Chevy Chase. 1D at 2102 Salisbury Road, Silver Spring. 1E at 402 Tulip Avenue, Tacoma Park. 1F at 11 East Lenox Street, Chevy Chase. 1G at 8500 Colesville Road, Silver Spring. 1H at 3824 Warner Street, Kensington. 1J at 7835 Handom Lane, Bethesda. 1K at 19120 Matinee Hill Road, Germantown, and 1L at 12 East Lenox Street, Chevy Chase.
Chair Burdett, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with the staff reports, based upon the record before us, in consideration of the recommendations of local advisory panels, and including the conditions recommended by staff. Hop number 1000460 at 2 East Lenox Street, Chevy Chase. Hop number 1002250 at 2102 Salisbury Road, Silver Spring. Hop number 1002546 at 402 Tulip Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop 1002995 at 11 East Lenox Street, Chevy Chase. Hop number 1003062 at 8500 Colesville Road, Silver Spring. Hop number 1003102 at 3824 Warner Street, Kensington. Hop number 1005332 at 7835 Hamden Lane, Bethesda. Hop number 1005191 at 19120 Matinee Hill Road, Germantown. And hop number 1004042 at 12 East Lenox Street, Chevy Chase.
Do I have a second on the motion?
Commissioner Dolman, I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 These hops are approved. And I thank everybody who submitted hops that can be easily approved and the staff will proceed with the hops. And I'll close the record on the hops and move on to the regular hops we will be hearing. Okay. The first one we are hearing tonight is case number 1A at 7827 Hamden Lane, Bethesda, hop number 955242 in the Greenwich Forest Historic District. Is there a staff report?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is the continued staff report for 7827 Hampton Lane, Bethesda. Again, it was constructed in 1937 in the Greenwich Forest Historic District. This is reviewed under the Greenwich Forest Design Guidelines, Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. Again, just a background about the district. It was developed in the 1930s as an auto-dependent suburb. The 69 houses fall into three general styles: Colonial Revival, Tudor Revival, French Eclectic, and it was up until Potomac Overlook, it was the most recent district added to the master plan in 2011. This is the site. It's a Hampton Lane address, but it also has frontage on Midwood Road. So the HPC considered a hop for this work back in October of 2022. The HPC tabled consideration and directed the applicant to have a professional survey completed. That survey is attached in the staff report. The survey did demonstrate that the new fence constructed enters the right-of-way. The applicant now returns to seek an approved hop. And just to note that in the discussion, the HPC did not voice any concerns with the fence that was installed on the right side and the right rear of the house. Because nothing was approved at the prior consideration, all the new fencing is under consideration for this hop. So the applicant proposes to install a new solid board fence enclosing the left side of the property. This hop is retroactive, so the HPC is to consider the work as if it had not been completed. Again, there was a fence installed on the property prior to this hop, but the exact location and height of that fence can only be estimated based on images from Google Street View. And we're going to go through some of those images now. This is on the right side of the house before the current fence was installed. This is the right side of the house, which is much less visible from the public right-of-way. And then this is the left side of the house from a distance. We're going to get a little closer in this next photo. See, there's a large tree on the left side of the image. Oops. And then this is further up Midwood Road, looking directly down the front line of the previous fence. And then these images are the current fence. You can see based on the leaves, this was done last fall after the fence was installed. It's taller. This is a 6-foot fence with a gate. And then further up Midwood Road, much of the fence is obscured by foliage. Also, just to note, the less finished side of the fence faces the neighboring property, which is a disfavored practice. You either want equal finish on both sides or the higher level of finish facing the right-of-way. So you see from the survey that the fence extends on the northern edge beyond the property into the right-of-way and then takes a jog around the tree. So a fence in the right-of-way is not something that DPS will approve, so revisions are going to be required. Guideline D9 states that to preserve the uninterrupted green space adjacent to the public right-of-way, front fences are not allowed. D9 continues, fences up to 6 foot 6 inches taller permitted in back and side yards. And in the case of side yards, fences may extend up to just behind the front plane of the house, preserving at least a 3-foot setback from the facade. The design guidelines do not define what constitute front, side, or rear yards, so staff has interpreted the terms as they are generally understood. In the work session, a question was posed to staff for zoning purposes, what is the front? Zoning applies front setback requirements to both Hampton and Midwood, but that's a specific consideration for zoning and building setback, not for considerations under the guidelines. Staff finds that the proposed 6-foot tall solid board fence creates a wall-like appearance along Midwood Road that is detrimental to the character of the surrounding district. Staff finds that the fence complies with the height requirement, but is set back less than the 3 feet identified in D9. The fence setback is approximately 2 feet from the wall plane. And staff finds that the 3-foot fence setback requirement is an arbitrary measure intended to separate fences from the front wall plane of the house and to maintain the open character of the surrounding district. This fence engages the house at the corner of the side projecting sunroom, and staff finds that the proposed fence location is rational as a fence that engages the sunroom a fence that engages the sunroom a foot rearward would not blend into the house design and would appear awkward. Staff finds that the fence location at the front does not meet the letter of D9 but satisfies its spirit. Staff's recommended revision includes a fence that is all on the subject property as required under zoning, and is 2 feet lower so that it is a 4-foot fence on the subject property consistent with the fence that was installed prior to the current fence. So that was recommended by the staff as a condition. The owner and the owner's representative have agreed to undertake all work required by this condition. The Greenwich Forest Design Guidelines concerning dimensions of additions allows for screening of vegetation to mitigate the visual impact of building additions. And staff has consistently interpreted that the guideline allows vegetative screening as an appropriate mitigation for other elements within the Greenwich Forest Historic District. So even though the fence along Midwood Road would be lower, vegetative screening would still be something that would be something that staff would support but does not recommend as a condition for approval. Getting back to zoning limits fence height to 3 feet above the curved level for a distance of 15 feet from an intersection, which is designed to preserve sightlines. Staff finds that this fence satisfies that requirement and appears to satisfy other zoning limitations, but that's something to be evaluated by DPS when they go in for their final fence permit. And again, just to reiterate, DPS zoning reviews consider both of these fronts, but we consider front to be sort of in common usage. So again, what you see in the upper left corner is the current, which is going to require significant modification. And in the lower right is the previous fence, which is generally consistent with what staff is approving under its recommended conditions. And I will take any questions that you have.
Are there any questions for staff?
And this is Commissioner Doman. The fence that you show is currently still there, the
Yes.
tall fence?
Yes.
And it's still standing? Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff from the commissioners?
Yeah, I have a question.
Commissioner Pelletier.
I haven't read the guidelines thoroughly. Is there an open aspect of the fence that's required?
So in other districts, we do, there isn't a requirement for an open picket, but in places like Chevy Chase Village and Tacoma Park, the typical staff recommendation is for an open picket character so that they're visible. Ordinarily, though, an open picket is for a fence that's in front of the house so that the house and the surrounding district are visible. In this case, we have a fence that, the in front of the house is still open. So the commissioners could certainly identify a house that had more openness. But staff finds that this fence is set back enough and leaves enough of the corner open that the fence in the left, which is where the issue is, still leaves the sense of openness and sort of the forested nature of the district still plainly visible from the right-of-way.
Okay. All right, thanks.
If there are no more questions for staff from the commissioners, then is the applicant here tonight?
So, Madam Chair, the applicant communicated with staff before the staff report was finished that neither the owner, who is in foreign service, or the owner's representative were going to be available this evening. However, they've, through me, they've just want to reinforce that they're amenable to basically whatever the HPC comes down with, and they just want to make sure that any work that they undertake is consistent with a HOP approval, so they can get right with their permits.
Thank you. Then moving forward, we do have a speaker tonight, Mr. Schindel, if you will step forward. And as always, please turn on the mic, identify yourself, your address, and your relationship to this or interest in this case. And you will have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is David Schindel. I live at 5605 York Lane, Bethesda, Maryland. I've lived there since 1989. I have, for most of the last decade, been president of the Greenwich Forest Citizens Association. I was chair of the committee that developed our district guidelines. And as Ms. Ballo may have informed you, the association has recently created a historic district committee of 5 members. I serve as the vice chair. The chair is on travel. My testimony is the product of the committee. They voted unanimously, 5-0, to endorse this. I'll be brief. I have 3 points to make. Staff mentioned the critical sentence in section D9 on fences, although that phrase appears nowhere in the staff report. Someone turn on the slides, or do I do that?
We can do that. Just
Thank you.
one moment, please.
Your slides or?
Yeah, 2 slides.
Hold on a second, please.
And staff did read that sentence to you, but it'll be coming up on the screen in just a moment. That's right. Let me just give background while we're waiting. The original fence that was discussed was constructed before the historic district was created. It was subsequently demolished, and as the beginning of the staff report says, it should be treated as new construction. That is, it should be treated as if it had never existed. And yet, a fair amount of time in the report is spent on the characteristics of the previous fence, so I was confused by that. This is the written testimony. There's 2 pages of a PDF that are a presentation. Sorry? That's not the presentation. That's my written testimony. The presentation is legible from a distance. So this is not really considered grandfathered in by the district guidelines. It should have no standing, and in fact, it's poorly documented. If you look through the application, the only mention of it is description of work proposed, and I'll read it to you. We have already built a new fence to replace the old, period. The new fence was installed similar to the neighbors to match and in the same area as previous fence. That's the limit of its documentation. So I think it's a moot point of what the old fence was because they demolished it. If they had repaired it, we wouldn't be here talking about it because they wouldn't have needed a HOP. I will point out that in your consent agenda, there was a virtually identical case from a house in Greenwich Forest, a block away, a corner house, a previous fence built prior to the historic district that was demolished, replaced without any permits, no county permit, no HPC, that extended up to and probably into the right-of-way. And You recommended that it be removed back to, I think, the 30-foot construction line. It wasn't implemented. We have a wonderful new neighbor who has submitted work, a proposal that you approved, good proposal, and he is going to comply with it, rebuilding it so it's a good neighbor fence, and it goes back not to obstruct the view. So that's actually the third point I wanted to make. The second point is the place of replacements in these discussions. I believe if somebody has demolished a structure, especially without permission, it's a moot point. The main point is this phrase in the guidelines, which I believe couldn't be clearer. To preserve the uninterrupted green space adjacent to the public right-of-way, front fences are not allowed. This fence is obviously adjacent to the public right-of-way. In fact, it invaded it. It was at your hearing last October that I pointed out that that was a likelihood. There it is, thank you. And I believe Commissioner Haynes said, why don't we get a survey? The survey was done shortly after your hearing. I spoke to the surveyors, so it's been a long time coming. I believe that this is really a dispositive phrase. I don't believe it could be clearer, and even the county says, well, corner properties have two fronts for the purpose of setbacks. This is a front fence adjacent to a public right-of-way. Could you, next slide, please? And this is the visual impact of it. On the left is the fence, the new fence, and the picture on the right is another corner house a block away, taken at exactly the same angle along the right-of-way, facing perpendicular to the property line without a fence. And I won't belabor how different these views are. Lower left is the proposal from the application of what a new fence could be. We believe that the guidelines call for the blue line, a fence starting at the point. We accept the point 2 feet behind it. We agree it would be awkward to move it to 3 feet behind it, but it would come no closer than that distance to the right-of-way and would parallel the right-of-way. So we ask that the commission approve construction of a fence along parallel to Midwood, starting at that point on the corner of the sunroom, and no fences closer to Midwood Road than that. Thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Schindel? Commissioner Haynes.
Sorry. Go back to the diagram that was just up. Could you sort of expand on the blue line and why, and you may have mentioned it and maybe it didn't register with me, but why is the blue line at that point as opposed to maybe 10 feet closer to the property line? How does that blue line relate to the front wall plane of the house or the public right-of-way?
Excuse me. Fair question, and in fact, the committee is wrestling with that to clarify this. The general guideline is a fence that starts 3 feet behind the front plane, but parallels that plane. So non-corner houses all have fences that would meet that blue line. So the neighbors, their fence would be more or less the same place. Corner properties have very large front yards, ample backyards, but smaller proportionally than other properties. Neighbors always have the option of enclosing a front yard with hedges, with vegetation, but it's the presence of a built environment in front of the house, that prominent, that led us to say 3 feet behind the front plane for non-corner houses without specifying what we meant on corner houses. And that was a lapse on our point. But this sentence expresses the clear intent to keep the streetscape unencumbered by structures like fences.
Well, which it does on the street side of the public right-of-way.
Mhm.
And if this property were an interior lot, the fence would be allowed to extend per the red line, except 3 feet back from the front wall plane. Is that correct?
No.
Is that a fair statement?
An interior, you mean a
Well,
non-corner?
if this weren't a corner lot,
If it weren't a corner lot, the fence on that house could not come any closer to the street than the blue line. It would be the same situation on the rest of the block. All the fences would have to be 3 feet behind the front plane of the house and could not approach the street, could come no closer than that
right, it would
point.
be 3 feet behind the front plane, but could extend parallel to that front plane.
Yes.
To the side, the side property line, if it were an interior lot. Is that,
Well, all the other houses, the front facade of the house parallels the right-of-way. It only comes up as an issue on a corner lot.
so there appears, as you noted, a little bit of vagueness in the interpretation of what frontage means in the standards, your standards. Is that what I heard?
We don't think that there is an ambiguity because, as staff said, the county's definition is the corner houses have 2 front yards and for the purpose of setbacks, and for rear and side setbacks, you pick one to be side and one to be rear. It also, maybe we should have said, fences that front on the public right-of-way, that's the other sense of the word front. They front, in fact, that's where frontage comes from. You have 2 sides with frontage. So that's why we were satisfied that this sentence would cover corner properties. But apparently, we need to be, I take on board that we need to be more explicit, more precise. And I've mentioned in previous testimonies that the committee is now working on a set of amendments.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
Commissioner Dolman. I understand what you're saying. If we go with the blue line in this diagram, the homeowner, applicant here, basically has no backyard. I mean, it severely, I know this is a corner lot and things are a little bit different here, but you are basically taking away what would be a nice, I don't know if they have a dog or kids or anything like that, but you're really limiting the individual's backyard. And I can see why the fence was originally in this angle, in this position, because it gives you a nice workable backyard. And I could make a case for it extending, as the red line shows it, out to the property line. Simply because it looks like a backyard, other than the fact that it's on a Midwood Road, But I kind of think of this as a backyard, so that's how I look at it. Thank you.
This is Chair Burdett. I guess I have a question to you, sir. On Midwood Road, you've got the blue line that's coming right off the corner of, I guess it's a sunroom, and or enclosed porch, and the angle of that fence at that location would be detrimental to the view out of that that enclosed porch. Even at it'll be better when it's only 4 feet high, but that's beside the point. So on Hamden Lane, is it the same issue that you would have a blue line coming 3 feet off the corner of the house and paralleling Hamden Lane, so that, again, they do not have, the fence is running very close to the house all the way to the Lot 17 property line? On the Hamden Lane side, is the same condition going to happen? Would with the angle, the blue line angle, the blue line parallel Hamden Lane right there from the corner of the
Yeah,
house?
This is a particularly narrow angle on this corner, and that's because it produces very little area behind the house. The area to the right of the house as you face it is mostly driveway, and that's why, that's why the fence is located where it is. It could be further around, but I think it's all driveway on that side. In your decision on 7835 Hampton, you said that the fence could extend to the 30-foot construction line. The 30-foot construction line in this case would have the blue line jogging at right angles to the sunroom up to the 30-foot construction limit, and could then follow the construction line. That was the compromise that the commission made in that other one. I think that would be acceptable to the committee if you wanted to follow that, because it then increases the area behind the fence while preserving the streetscape.
And whereabouts is that 30-foot line?
Well, for the record, I believe it's 25 feet.
Okay.
The
Front yards,
Is that
in
the red line?
R60, I am assuming that it's an R60 zone. It's 25 feet front.
the neighborhood, I think, is R90.
Regardless, again, each case is looked at on its individual merits per the setback, and the guideline D9 does instruct the commission to, pull it up. The last sentence in D9, the decision-making body is directed to show flexibility in reviewing applications for work permits for such fences and walls. So taking that into account, you know, the staff recommendation or the board recommendations on each individual case, there are many different factors that go into that. So I don't, we could certainly pull that up, but we don't necessarily think that it's relevant in this case.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I know you don't encourage, you
Excuse
discourage
me,
crosstalk.
The chair can recognize, you
Sorry.
know, if the commissioners or the chair has questions for this speaker. But
I have one last question, and I'll ask again if anybody has questions. Looking at your diagrams again, a thought is the homeowner has a small child and they wouldn't want to put a large swing set or climbing structure for their child in their yard. I am assuming that they are not allowed to put it in the front yard within the area between the house and the radius of the corner. And they wouldn't be able to put it between the Blue Line and Midwood Road, and a similar thing would happen on Hamden Lane, which leaves them very little space for a structure like that on the site. Is that correct?
No. There's no prohibition for putting climbing equipment outside of a fenced yard. There are many properties. In fact, the picture above there, that gray thing, are 6x6 wooden uprights on a swing set that is used by the whole neighborhood. I have to say that Ms. Ballow cited something from the guidelines at the end of D9, but that was specifically with reference to houses fronting on Wilson Lane. Now, knowing that there may be some extenuating circumstances for the child living in this house that I only know secondhand, I don't want to embark on hearsay.
It's just a theoretical argument. Whoever, whatever.
In the case of a renter, a special situation for a renter, committee, I think, would be agreeable to delay implementation of the fence, of removal of the fence in cases of extenuating need.
Thank you. Any other questions from the Commissioner? Commissioner Pelletier?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Pelletier. Can we go back to the diagrams with the blue line and the red line? So does that blue line kind of line up with the fronts of the houses on Midwood Road?
Yes?
Okay.
Yeah, fences along Midwood would intersect very close to that blue line.
They would just be 3 feet behind the face of the house. Okay. Well, if it was my house, I wouldn't build that blue line fence. I would probably take it out perpendicular from the sunroom and then turn the corner, so at least you wouldn't have this like weird wedgy pie-shaped piece of land next to your sunroom. But yeah, it's a tricky problem. And I see, even looking at the photo, I see your point. You know, it pretty much does what the guidelines were trying to keep it from doing. So I was just curious, if you turn the corner, the blue line is sort of going to line up with the houses as they're going down the street. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Nasser, I don't want to forget you. Do you have any questions or comments?
I actually have a question to kind of confirm or elaborate Commissioner Pelletier question. So if the neighbor, like lot 15, decided to put up a fence, do they have to follow the blue line, like keep that setback and have a fence there, or that's just the front of their house?
Yeah, they would have a fence parallel to that blue line, starting 3 feet behind the front facade. And so generally, that turns out to be within 5 feet on any given block for any house on the block.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments?
Let me try one.
Okay, Commissioner Doman.
It's Commissioner Doman again. The blue line is parallel to Midwood Road. And the setback between the road or the property line to the blue line is 25 feet? Is that what that is, or is it 30 feet?
No, in that, the setback from the curb to the
As we see
private
it-
property?
We see it in the diagram here, where we see the blue line. How far is that back from Midwood Road?
I don't know. I've never gone on the property to measure it. It would probably be about 40 to 45 feet, sometimes 50 feet from the curb. The right-of-way in that area is 17 feet wide, I believe.
I was wondering if there isn't some way that you could get a compromise between the red and the blue, come like the red line is, it comes parallel with the front of the house, and then move your blue line out closer to the road to give somebody a backyard anyway. Would that be an acceptable?
Yeah, no, I've suggested that, and the precedent is
Thank you.
in the application that you approved under the expedited agenda, and that is the fence comes out perpendicular to the sunroom, and then dog legs to the right to parallel Midwood at the 30-foot construction line, which is 30 feet back from the right-of-way. So that would probably move that blue line, I don't know, maybe 15 feet closer to the road. That's acceptable. Certainly, it's consistent with your previous decision.
If there are no more questions for Mr. Schindel, I will close this portion of the hearing, and you can sit back down. We can discuss this issue now amongst ourselves. Is there anybody who'd like to make a case? Or yes, Commissioner Pelletier.
Sort of adding on to Commissioner Dolman's comment and Mr. Schindel's comment, I think I feel like there is a compromise between these two. I think there's definitely something in the guidelines that needs to be tightened up for these corner lots, for sure. But I feel like the spirit of the code, or the spirit of the guidelines with this picture of this fence, is being violated here. This is, what's showing here is exactly what they didn't want to happen. So whether it's clearly stated in the guidelines, as far as setbacks and measurements and things go, that needs to be addressed. But I think the spirit of the guidelines would want this fence to be further back from Midwood Road. I don't like the blue line. I wouldn't want that little wedgy view from my sunroom, but I think pulling it back perpendicular but not taking it all the way out to the street or to the right of way, or is that the property line? I guess it's the property line. But pulling it back a bit, but having an angle parallel out from the house, and then turn and pick up the other fence, but keeping it back from the road, I think would meet the spirit of the code. It would also give them a decent yard, and it would look a whole lot better than it does in this photo. So that's my take.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, this is Commissioner Haynes. I'll just say that I concur with the idea that of having the uninterrupted green space concept is compromised in the current configuration, and that I do think the right answer is to pull the fence back from the property line, maybe as much as 6-8 feet, to allow the visual and physical continuity of the green space. And I think that would meet the spirit of the Greenwich Village guidelines. So if there are no more commissioner comments, I would make a move that the HPC, in accordance with the standards set forth in Section 24A of the Montgomery County Code, approve this HOP number 955242 at 7827 Hamden Lane, Bethesda, with the modification that the fence portion along Midwood Road property line be pulled back 6 to 8 feet, that the fence coming off the sunroom be maintained as shown in the red line diagram.
And the height?
And the height be lowered to the 4 feet as recommended by staff.
Do I have a second for this motion?
This is Commissioner Dolman. I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 This motion carries. Thank you very much. The staff will be contacting the applicant. Thank you, Mr. Shindell. Moving on, case number 1C at 9838 Capitol View Avenue, Lot 12, Block 31, Silver Spring, HOP number 960660, Capitol View Park Historic District. Is there a staff report?
Yes, Madam Chair, there is. Just real briefly, this is a staff report for new construction in Capitol View Park Historic District. It's an undeveloped lot in the subdivision. It's identified as a spatial resource, and spatial resources are unimproved parcels of land which visually and aesthetically contribute to the setting of the historic district and which can be regarded as extensions of the environmental setting of the significant historic resources. This is to be reviewed under Chapter 24A, the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation, and the Master Plan Amendment for Capitol View Park. So, just to give you a little bit more background about Capitol View Park, Part of the historic significance is that it's a community that developed gradually over the past 100 years. So I guess this was 40 years ago, so 140 years. And that it is, it includes representatives of basically all of the architectural styles over that time period. And, that many of these structures, again, possess little distinction as architectural entities, but they do represent a suburban railroad-oriented development, and that's why it's one of the first districts designated in the county. So back in February, we held a preliminary consultation for construction on 2 lots, for 2 single-family homes, lots 12 and 13. We are still working on lot 13 with the applicant to bring you something that we think is assuredly approvable. HPC determined that constructing on the subject lot was more flexible because the actual construction envelope was restricted to the rear portion of the lot due to the access easement on the existing gravel drive, and because no access was available to lot 13 from Capitol View Avenue. Additionally, the grade drops off, which will limit the visibility of the proposed house. So we'll hear lot 13 at a separate future date, and I'm sure the applicant hopes not too far into the future. Just again, to refamiliarize yourself, these photos were back in January. It actually helps that the trees haven't leafed out. You can see it's grown with small to medium-sized trees. There are no landmark trees on the site. This house goes by several names: the Farmer Brown House, the Case House, the Carson House. This house predates the subdivision for Capitol View Park, and the gravel drive that you see is under an easement, which will need to be addressed as part of this. Again, looking back into towards the railroad tracks, this is looking across the property to the south. There is a depression there with a foundation with hollow terracotta blocks. You can see those with my cursor. And again, a number of sort of small to medium-sized trees. And then this is looking, again, back up the hill towards Capitol View Avenue. So the star is the subject property. You can see the gravel drive to the circa 1870 house. And then we'll address the lot to the south at a later date. So this is the 1887 plat of Capitol View Park. You see lot 30 on block 31 is the Farmer Brown House, and we're dealing with lots 12 and 13. They extend from Capitol View Avenue to the B&O Railroad track setback. So the house design hasn't changed from the original submission. It borrows from traditional architectural vocabulary while not being distinctly one style. 2 stories tall. It'll have a walkout basement in the back because of the change in grade. Again, several features limit access to the site. There's a bus stop and crosswalk on Capitol View Avenue. The existing driveway, which includes a right of access, which is that's pulled directly from the deed. The slope of the land towards the west, and the railroad tracks at the western property boundary. So this is a streetscape study that was submitted with the previous preliminary consultation. The X's on lot 13 are because that property is not under consideration under this HOP. And you can see that with the placement of the proposed structure, that the first floor is effectively buried below the street grade at its placement. And I can come back to any of these if you want. I'll also notice that the setback from the street to the front of the garage is 122 feet and 4 inches. And then it's another approximately 20 feet before you're at the front wall plane of the house. So we're set back 140 to 150 feet from the street to the front wall plane of the house. At the preliminary consultation, a majority of the commissioners found that the house was large but not out of scale with the surrounding district. The placement of the house on lot 12 was dictated by the easement and needed to provide access to whatever house gets constructed on lot 13. And the placement of the house on lot 12 was so far from the right-of-way that it would not significantly impact the surrounding streetscape. And any house proposed there should have a more lenient review. The trees, additionally, the trees be retained or planted to attempt to retain as much of the quote-unquote spatial character as possible. I'll note that those are not historic trees, and it was a farmhouse, so those characteristics, when it was historically, was probably cleared. The Capitol View LAP resubmitted their comments from the February preliminary consultation and expressed concerns about the placement of the house on Lot 11. I believe that I actually meant Lot 12, as being intrusive to the spatial setting of the Farmer Brown Carson Case House, the lack of differentiation in design, but we've only got one house under consideration today, and the possible lack of appropriate placement of the house in terms of county setback requirements. Staff finds that the placement of the proposed house is dictated by site restrictions, both legally required and functionally required. Those functional requirements are that the single driveway will provide access to the lot to the south as well. Staff finds that the design of the house draws from a traditional architectural vocabulary, and staff concurs with the majority of the HPC that the house is large but not at a scale with the surrounding district. Staff additionally concurs with the HPC, who determined that the materials proposed were generally acceptable for infill construction and building additions in the Capitol View Park Historic District. So staff recommended 2 conditions for approval for this. To mitigate the tree removals on site, staff recommends that the HPC add a condition that an additional 3 shade or canopy trees are planted between the house and the right-of-way. And staff recommends that the HPC delegate final approval authority of wood or clad wood windows and doors to staff. Approved multi-light windows will have permanently affixed exterior grills and an interior spacer bar. And staff recommends that the HPC approve the HOP under 24A, 8B2 and D, and standards 2, 9, and 10. Lastly, staff will note that we received some written testimony that's been transmitted to the commissioners. That individual, which is a neighbor, is not able to attend tonight, so those comments will be included in the record for the hearing. And with that, I will answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Pelletier.
Can you point out is there a site plan in there? Yeah, where the trees are going to go, or where the conditional trees are to be planted?
Well, so the house is being constructed to the west of basically this yellow line here. So the house is going to go here. So the trees should go, somewhere in this additional space.
So up by the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay.
so and I'm sorry, I thought I had them in here, but I must have clipped it. But the site plan called for, I believe, 4 or 5 trees between the railroad tracks and
Yeah.
the rear of the house.
Yeah. And one in there's the red X's are where they're coming out, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So in order to fill that in the front, staff's recommending that 3 trees that will grow it and fill the canopy be planted between the house and the road.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure when you said the right of way, but that's fine. I understand now. Thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Nasser, do you have any questions?
No, thanks.
Thank you. Then if there are no further questions, then I would invite the applicant to come forward. Mike Winfield, please make sure the mic is on. Identify yourself, your address, and your interest in this application, relationship.
Michael Winfield. I'm representing Mr. Kaufman for 9838 Capitol View Avenue. Thank you. We support the recommendations of the staff report. We're happy to plant the trees requested in the front. And I believe we've already provided some window documentation to them, but we make sure that they have what they need for the windows.
Okay, are there any questions for the applicant? If no one's going to speak up, I have a few questions. You are removing 20 trees on the property, and I understand that a portion of them, apparently 5, 6, are directly related to the house construction and the entrance to the garage. And some additional trees are being removed because that foundation is going to be removed and they're going to be in the way. But there are also apparently some trees being removed that seem to be out of the way of the driveway and the foundations and the house construction. Why are those tagged to be removed?
If there's anything that does not have to be removed for the house, we would definitely leave those. We're not trying to strip the land of the trees by any means. So anything that could be saved, we would work on saving.
Have you done an inventory of the tree types that are on the property, the
We have.
specific species?
We have.
I understand the ones to be removed are greater than 6 inch. But are they all hardwoods or, old growth or slow growth trees as opposed to specimens?
The majority of the trees had no value.
And that would be what? Okay.
Locust trees, they weren't large, old-growth trees.
But locust trees, no other specimen trees?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
There's a 26, sorry, I'm speaking out of turn.
Commissioner Pelletier? Yes.
This is Commissioner Pelletier. You have a 26-inch oak tree that's coming out sort of towards the front of the road. Is that why, I guess I'm asking? Because that one's not really, is it in the way? Is it a terrible tree? Is it sick?
I don't know exactly why that tree was labeled, but if it's something that could be saved, we would definitely consider saving it.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Haynes was next.
I just wanted to ask the question, you have a front-loading garage. Have you explored the possibility, and it appears that the garage is roughly square in dimension, could it possibly be the garage opening to the side, I guess the south side, and perhaps utilize some of the driveway going to the adjacent property as part of your turnaround, and that way you could, obviously you'll still need driveway access to the adjacent property, the new house, but would sort of combine hardscape that you're going to need anyways for the access road to the adjacent south property. Have you ever thought about that? Is it a possibility? I do know that that was one of the concerns of the, I guess the neighbors had concerns about that front-facing driveway, garage door.
Yes, sir, we considered every possible alternative for that garage, but with the grade changes there, that grade drops off severely right there, so there's really no way to get access to it. No other way to get access to it.
Well, the grade doesn't appear to drop till just about the porch, so you're, at least as shown on your exterior elevations, the right side elevation shows the grade relatively flat where the garage, where there's a pair of windows into the garage are. So it seems like you'd be able to mitigate that.
We worked with Cass Engineering on that, and he had multiple problems getting the garage to work any other way. So we did put a lot of time into trying to satisfy that, because we knew that was a concern, and we did spend a lot of time and energy trying to accommodate that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
Yes, Commissioner Dolman. There we go. On your application, you clearly state that Lot 13 is not part of the proposal.
Yes, sir.
but you have little red X's all over for the trees that are be cut down. So I assume then your application, you're only, for what we are looking at, you are only going to address the trees on Lot 12. You're not going to cut any trees on Lot 13 yet. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir. With Lot 13, there was a lot of concern with the neighbor. He had a lot of concerns legitimately. So we wanted to just step back, move forward with what seemed workable, and take our time to work with Mr. Faulkner to make sure he's happy with what's going to be built, because he's right next to it, so he has to live with it.
Yeah, I mean, there
So
was.
we're not doing anything on Lot 13.
There were concerns from the neighbors. I happen to see I guess a letter addressed to the commission about the number of trees that are being cut down. And I think we've addressed that here, but, so as you're saying, nothing on Lot 13 will be affected by this
No, sir, we will not be
application.
doing anything on Lot 13 until we come back in front of you.
Okay.
Commissioner Nasser, do you have any questions?
No, thanks.
If there are no more questions for the applicant, I will close this portion of this discussion. And sir, you can sit back in the other seat, and we will open this for discussion amongst ourselves. Would anybody like to go first? If not, I will. Okay. This case was concerning the first time it came through, and there are improvements made, and we recognize that, and we thank you for making those improvements. Obviously, we are concerned about the trees, the number of trees that are being marked as taken out, and I would like to see a plan given to the staff that is revised with not only the number of trees being removed, but where the new trees are going to be located. And I would like to see more trees added back in that would be either decorative specimens, as in a cherry or something, a red bud, but something that might be a little faster growing than an oak, and kind of, especially towards the front of the property, towards the street side, just do some screening. The house is still very large, and we obviously understand that it's at the back of the property. It's not as visible. It is up close to the rail line. I guess my biggest concern that I'm seeing is the left side of the garage next to lot 13, if I've got that right. That elevation looks like a big old barn, and it's fairly unrelieved. It's just a big, long, straight line with one pop out and one recess where the mechanical equipment are. But essentially on the second floor, it reads this all the way back straight. I would like to see you wrap that shingle siding around the garage on the second level and wrap it around on the left-hand side. It will, I think, relieve the boxiness of the house on this side. The garage and the front plane of the house, and then on the right side is not so bad. And there's just not much you can do with the front of a garage at the house, unfortunately. But I would like you to look at the materials that you're using on that garage and how you can make that left side look a little less barny as it is. I think that's most of my concerns. Anybody next up? Commissioner Doman.
I agree with you on the left side. I didn't look at it till just now when you were discussing the side, called the left side elevation of the house. I had kind of glanced over this, and I truly believe that it can be improved. You know, maybe bringing that siding around like Commissioner Burdette mentioned on the thing. I think that's important. But I also think that the house, the garage doesn't bother me because it's, when you look at there's a drawing here that shows a street view. The garage basically is not even visible from the street. So I have no problem with the front of the house or anything else. I think maybe the side could be, and I accept staff's recommendations about the trees, that a report be submitted, and it mentions maybe 3 trees, but I could see maybe more trees being planted in the front of the house would be acceptable. And the requirement about the windows and the information being submitted to staff about appropriate windows. So I can go along with this, but I would like to see the left side. I do believe that could use some improvement. I could see that. But other than that, I think I'm happy with it. Thank you.
Any other comments from any of their commissioners? Commissioner Nasser, do you have any?
I just wanted to add once again about the trees. I just don't understand why some of them are marked to be taken down. I'd like to see any report if they're they have issues or problems and they're on the way, but it doesn't look like it. So that's my only concern, that why you X'd out these many trees. The ones that are within the footprint of the building, of course, I understand, but the rest, I think we need some good reasons to take them down. Thank you.
Yes, please do. Oh, please, you'll have to come forward.
We have a bus stop out front on Capitol View Avenue that we are definitely interested in screening. So planting more trees out front and saving anything possible is definitely our priority as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it. Would somebody like to make a motion for this based on staff recommendation?
You're looking at me? All right, let me see if I can do this. Okay, I move that the Historic Preservation, this is Commissioner Pelletier. I move the Historic Preservation Commission, in accordance with the standards set forth in Section 24A of the Montgomery County Code, we approve HOP number, hang on a sec. Is it the case number 960-660? I move that we approve HOP number 960-660 at 9838 Capitol View Avenue, Lot 12, with the conditions recommended by staff. Anything else?
Yes. I mean, would you?
With the submission of an updated site plan indicating locations of, here we go. I'm looking right at it. Approve this HOP with the conditions recommended by staff. Prior to permit approval, we'd like to see an updated site plan indicating the locations of the recommended 3 additional trees, and submission of window and door information as indicated in the staff report.
Good enough. Thank you. Do I have a second for this?
This is Commissioner Haynes. I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This motion passes. Thank you. Staff will talk with you about their expectations, and when you come forward with the next lot, we do expect a good product from you. Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, moving forward. All right, where am I? Thank you, sir. Okay, next on the agenda, item 2 is Historic Preservation Tax Credits Group 4.
Actually, we have groups 3 and 4 this time around.
Ah,
That
thank
should have
you.
been transmitted to the commission. So group 3 is for 36 applications totaling approximately $782,259.96. And group 4 is 19 applications totaling $430,723.86.
I make a motion that we approve the Historic Preservation Tax Credits Group number 3 and number 4 as explained by staff, Mr. Kine. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Pelletier. I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This motion passes. I congratulate all the applicants who have submitted for tax credits. It is probably the absolute best benefit, second to living in or owning a historic property, is getting the tax credits for repairing a historic property. I wish more people would take advantage of it. All right, moving on. Minutes, item number 3. Today it is the minutes for the HPC hearing on July 27th, 2022. Has anybody other than I read the minutes? Commissioner Doman, you're always so good about that. Would you like to
I
make,
did read the minutes, this is true.
would you like to make a motion?
So I move that we accept the draft minutes as presented to the commission by staff for the July 27th, 2022 HPC meeting.
Do I have a second?
It's Commissioner Haynes, I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This motion passes. And on to other business. Are there any commission items tonight? There are no commission items tonight. Are there any staff items tonight?
We did have 2 staff items, one for 20 Grafton Street, Chevy Chase. This was for revisions to the steps and landing at the rear of the new addition. And then one for 6910 Westmoreland Avenue, Tacoma Park. And this was for revisions to the siding and windows on a previously approved rear addition.
Remind me, we need to do each one of these individually, or can we combine them into one motion? Combine them? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion that we approve these staff items combined?
Sure, this is Commissioner Haynes. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve the modifications to hop number 987802 at 20 Grafton Street, Chevy Chase, and hop number 1000573 at 6910 Westmoreland Avenue, Tacoma Park.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Doman, I second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 This motion passes. And are there any other items for tonight?
No other items, Madam Chair.
Then I adjourn this meeting.